Overthinking in love. From anxious to at ease, stop analyzing every text, trust your partner, and enjoy your relationship without the mental spiral. By Sophie Marston. Introduction. A heavy coil of copper wire sits on the deck of a massive wooden ship called the Agamemnon. It looks like a giant sleeping snake, 3,000 miles long. To protect it from the salt and the crushing weight of the ocean, men have wrapped it in layers of hemp, iron wire, and a strange, sticky sap from trees in Malaysia called gutta percha. In 1858, this was the most important object on Earth. It was the first transatlantic telegraph cable. The world waited for this wire to do the impossible: connect the old world of Europe to the new world of America. People truly believed this object would change human nature. They thought that if we could talk to each other instantly, there would be no more wars. They believed that if a message could travel across the sea in minutes instead of weeks, all misunderstandings would vanish. They thought the speed of light would bring the speed of trust. On August 16, 1858, Queen Victoria sent the first official message to President James Buchanan. It was 98 words of celebration. But those words didn't fly across the ocean. They crawled. It took 16.5 hours for the Queen's message to be received and decoded. Almost immediately, the miracle began to break. The cable was fragile. The signals were weak and often arrived as garbled nonsense. A simple hello might look like a string of random dots and dashes. This created a new kind of human torture. Because the connection was supposed to be instant, every minute of silence felt like a disaster. Operators on both sides of the Atlantic spent their nights staring at the equipment, their hearts racing, trying to decide if the silence meant the cable was cut, or if the person on the other end was just taking a long time to type. They began to overread every flicker of the needle. They stayed awake for 48 hours straight, obsessing over a single dash that might have been a dot. They were the first people in history to experience the mental spiral of high-speed communication. They had the technology to talk, but they didn't have the peace of mind to handle the gaps. The distance was gone, but the misunderstanding remained. The monster in the gaps. This is exactly where you find yourself today. You are living in the age of the instant connection, but your heart is still operating on a fragile wire. You have more ways to reach your partner than any human in history, yet those very tools have become the source of your greatest anxiety. You know the feeling. It starts with a simple text message. Maybe you sent something a little vulnerable, like, "I really missed you today." Or maybe it was just a question about dinner. You hit send. Then you wait. 1 minute passes. Then 5. Then 20. You check your phone. You see the read receipt. You see that they were active on social media 3 minutes ago. But there is no reply. This is when the hyper-analyst inside you wakes up. This part of your brain is like those 19th century telegraph operators, frantically trying to decode the silence. You begin to build a story in the gaps. You wonder if your tone was too pushy. You wonder if they are bored. You wonder if they are with someone else. You go back and reread your last 10 messages, looking for the mistake you must have made. Your heart starts to beat faster. Your stomach feels like it's being squeezed by a cold hand. This is the mental loop. It is an inner monologue that feeds on itself, turning a simple delay into a sign of a coming breakup. By the time your partner finally texts back with something normal like, "Me too. Just got out of a meeting," you aren't relieved. You're exhausted. You're cortisol drunk, reeling from a self-made crisis that never actually happened. Why this book matters. If you are reading this, you are probably tired. You are tired of being a detective in your own relationship. You are tired of feeling like your happiness is 100% dependent on your partner's most recent mood or the speed of their typing. You want to feel secure. You want to be able to put your phone down and focus on your work, your friends, or a book without wondering if a silence is actually a threat. This book is for the person who feels too much. It is for the one who has been told they are too sensitive or needy because they notice every shift in their partner's voice. I want to tell you something right now, your brain isn't broken. It's just trying to protect you. It has developed a very high-speed threat detection system that was meant to keep you safe from predators, but it is currently being triggered by punctuation and emoji choices. The transformation we are going to walk through together is simple, but profound. You are going to move from being a hyper-analyst to becoming a secure anchor. A hyper-analyst views every silence as a threat. They live in a state of high alert, constantly scanning for signs of trouble. Their map of the relationship is covered in warning signs and red flags that they've drawn themselves. A secure anchor, however, perceives the relationship objectively. They can feel an emotional spike, the pit in the stomach, and instead of letting it drive them to a panic text, they can manage it with grace. They have a deep, quiet confidence that remains steady even when the relationship has a low moment. They don't need constant surveillance to feel safe. They trust the territory of the relationship more than the map in their head. A new kind of evidence. To get there, we are going to use two very different guides who lived long before the smartphone was ever invented. First, we will look to Marcus Aurelius. He was a Roman emperor who ruled the largest empire on earth while being surrounded by war, plague, and people trying to betray him. He had every reason to be the most overthinking person in history. Instead, he developed a way of thinking called the inner citadel. He realized that it isn't the events in our lives that upset us, but our opinion about those events. He will teach us how to separate the fact, he didn't text back, from the fiction, he doesn't love me. Second, we will look to Charles Darwin. While he is famous for his work on evolution, Darwin was also a man who suffered from massive anxiety and overthinking. He spent his life studying why animals, including humans, behave the way they do when they feel threatened. Through Darwin, we will learn about the vagus nerve and why your body reacts to a relationship threat the same way it would react to a tiger in the woods. When you understand the biology of your spiral, you can stop blaming your personality and start managing your nervous system. We will also use a recurring tool called the red phone. Think of this as the internal emergency hotline in your head. When your partner doesn't reply, the red phone starts ringing. You feel like you must pick it up. You feel like you must ask, "Are we okay?" or "Did I do something wrong?" This book will teach you how to let that phone ring without picking it up. It will teach you that the emergency is usually just an illusion. Meeting Maya. To see how this works in the real world, we are going to follow the story of Maya Rodriguez. Maya is 32 years old and lives in a minimalist apartment in the Wicker Park neighborhood of Chicago. She's a junior art director at a boutique marketing firm. She is creative, high-achieving, and a perfectionist. At work, she can handle a $1 million campaign without breaking a sweat. But in her personal life, things are different. Maya has been dating Liam, a software developer, for 7 months. She really likes him. He's kind, he's funny, and he seems to really care about her. But Maya is a hyper-analyst. It is 11:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. Maya is sitting on her sofa, the blue light of her phone reflecting in her glasses. 3 hours ago, she sent Liam a text that said, "I've been thinking about our conversation earlier. I'm really glad we're on the same page about things." It was a vulnerable text. It was an opening for him to say something sweet back. Liam hasn't replied. Maya has checked her phone 42 times. She has opened Instagram and seen that Liam liked a photo of a mountain bike 20 minutes ago. Her brain is now on fire. Why would he like a photo of a bike but not reply to my text, she thinks. Is he pulling away? Did I sound too serious? Maybe he realized he doesn't want to be on the same page. She starts a forecaster loop, imagining a future where he slowly stops texting altogether. Then she becomes a historian, remembering her ex-boyfriend who used to ghost her for days before a breakup. Finally, she becomes a mind reader, convinced she knows exactly what Liam is thinking. She's too much work. I need someone more chill. Her heart is racing. She feels a familiar, sick weight in her stomach. She opens her text thread and starts typing. "Hey, is everything okay? You seemed a little distant." Her thumb hovers over the send button. This is the moment of the spiral. This is the point where Maya is about to pick up the red phone and scream for reassurance. She believes that if she can just get him to say, "Everything is fine," the pain will go away. But she doesn't realize that the reassurance is like a drug. The more she gets it, the more she will need it tomorrow. We are going to leave Maya there, with her thumb hovering over that button. Over the next 20 chapters, we are going to give her and you the tools to move that thumb away from the screen. The journey ahead. This book is designed to be a roadmap out of the mental loop. We aren't just going to talk about loving yourself or being confident. We are going to look at the hard science and the ancient wisdom that actually changes how your brain processes love. Here is a glimpse of the path we will take. The architecture of the spiral. We will look at why your mind turns love into a puzzle that needs solving. We'll learn about the 3 shadows of overthinking: the forecaster, the historian, and the mind reader. The map and the territory. You will learn that your perception of your relationship is often very different from the reality of it. We will learn how to update your internal map so it stops leading you into swamps of anxiety. The 90-second rule. We will explore the gap between a thought and an action. You'll learn how to sit with a difficult feeling until it passes, rather than letting it drive you to do something you'll regret. The art of objective observation. Using the CCTV technique, you will learn how to describe your relationship like a scientist, stripping away the emotional adjectives that cause the panic. Digital detox and boundaries. We will tackle the digital ghost in the room, your phone. You'll learn how to break the habit of surveillance and how to build a fortress of internal trust. The transition to ease. Finally, we will look at what it looks like to truly surrender. Not surrendering to a partner, but surrendering the need for certainty. You will learn that the at-ease state isn't about knowing everything will work out. It's about knowing you will be okay, regardless of what happens. A promise of freedom. The goal of this book isn't to make you stop caring about your relationship. It's the opposite. It's to help you care so much that you stop suffocating it with your fears. Imagine a Tuesday night where your partner doesn't text back for 4 hours. Imagine that instead of checking your phone, you finish your work, you cook a great meal, and you go to bed feeling completely peaceful. You don't decide to trust them, you just do. You don't have to fight the spiral, because the spiral doesn't even start. You are no longer the 1858 telegraph operator, trembling over a garbled wire. You are the lighthouse on the shore, steady, bright, and immovable, no matter how the tide shifts. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Why does your mind turn love into a puzzle? In 1944, 2 researchers named Fritz Heider and Marianne Simmel sat people down in a small room to watch a short film. The movie was very simple. There was no music. There were no actors. There were just 3 shapes moving across a white screen: a large triangle, a small triangle, and a tiny circle. There was also a rectangle with a small gap that looked like a door. For 90 seconds, the shapes moved around. The large triangle bumped into the small triangle. The circle slid inside the rectangle and the door closed. Then the 2 triangles moved around each other outside. When the movie ended, the researchers asked the people to describe what they saw. Only one person out of the whole group said they saw shapes moving on a screen. Everyone else told a complicated story. They said the big triangle was a bully. They said the little circle was a hero, trying to escape. They described a love story between the small triangle and the circle. They even said the big triangle was angry and jealous. The people in the room weren't crazy. They were human. Their brains did exactly what a human brain is designed to do. It saw a gap in information, and it filled that gap with a story. It took a simple, flat image and turned it into a high-stakes puzzle of emotions and motives. This is the same thing that happens when you look at a gray bubble on a phone screen that says, "Read," but has no reply. Your brain sees the silence. It hates the silence. To your brain, silence is a gap that must be filled. Within seconds, you aren't just looking at a phone. You are watching a bully ignore you. You are watching a hero lose interest. You are turning love into a puzzle that you think you have to solve to survive. The myth of the missing piece. Most people believe a very common myth about their relationship anxiety. The myth is that if they just had more information, the overthinking would stop. They think, if I knew exactly what he was doing right now, I would feel calm. Or if she would just explain why she sounded tired on the phone, I could finally relax. We act as if our partner is holding a missing puzzle piece. We believe that once they hand over that piece, a text, an explanation, a promise, the picture will be complete and our minds will go quiet. This is why you might ask, are we okay? 3 times in one night. You are hunting for that missing piece. The truth is much harder to hear. The puzzle doesn't actually exist. The problem you are trying to solve is usually a ghost made of your own thoughts. When you get the reassurance you asked for, you feel better for 5 minutes. But then your brain finds a new gap. It notices a slightly different tone of voice, or a period at the end of a sentence that wasn't there before. The missing piece never finishes the puzzle because your brain is a factory that keeps printing new empty puzzles. We don't overthink because our partners are mysterious. We overthink because our brains are terrified of not knowing. To an anxious mind, a maybe feels like a no. A not yet feels like a never. We would rather invent a terrible story where we are being rejected than sit in the quiet of not knowing the truth. A lesson from the mud. Around the year 170 AD, a man named Marcus Aurelius sat in a tent near the Danube River. It was cold, dark, and smelled like wet leather and wood smoke. Outside his tent, a massive war was happening. Inside the camp, a deadly plague was killing his soldiers. Back in Rome, people he trusted were plotting to take his power. Marcus was the emperor of Rome, the most powerful man in the world. He had every reason to be in a total mental spiral. He could have spent his nights imagining his friends stabbing him in the back or picturing his empire falling apart. He had plenty of gaps in his information. He didn't know if he would win the war. He didn't know who was lying to him. Instead of pacing his tent in a panic, he wrote in a private journal. He wasn't writing for an audience. He was writing to keep his own mind from breaking. These writings became a book called Meditations. In those pages, he built a tool called the Inner Citadel. Marcus realized that the world outside his tent was chaos. He couldn't control the plague. He couldn't control what people whispered about him in Rome. He couldn't even control if a message reached him on time. He realized that if his happiness depended on things he couldn't control, he would always be a slave to fear. He wrote a sentence that changed the way people think about stress for the next 2,000 years. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. He meant that your mind doesn't just see the world, it paints the world. If you think your partner is pulling away, your whole soul becomes dyed in the color of rejection. Everything they do, even a simple K text, gets soaked in that color. You aren't seeing the text anymore. You are seeing the dye. Marcus taught himself to separate the facts from the story. If a messenger was late, the fact was, the messenger is not here. The story was, the messenger has been captured and we are going to lose the war. He realized that the fact never hurt him. Only the story caused him pain. The biology of the spiral. Our brains are not designed to make us happy. They are designed to keep us alive. This is a very important distinction. Thousands of years ago, if you were part of a tribe and you felt like the group was ignoring you, it was a life or death emergency. Being kicked out of the tribe meant you would probably be eaten by a lion or starve to death in the cold. Your brain developed a threat detection system that is incredibly sensitive to social cues. When your partner doesn't text back, your modern brain uses that same ancient system. It doesn't see a busy person at a meeting. It sees a social threat. It feels like you are being pushed out of the tribe. Your body releases cortisol, the stress hormone. Your heart rate goes up. Your stomach feels like it is tied in a knot. Because your body feels like there is a threat, your mind goes looking for it. It scans every memory and every recent conversation. It asks, what did I say? Was I too much? Did I annoy them? This is the meaning-making habit. Your brain is trying to find the lion so it can protect you. But in a relationship, there is usually no lion. There is just a person who forgot their phone charger or who is focused on a task. The problem is that once the threat system is turned on, it is very hard to turn off. Your brain starts to treat love like a riddle that must be solved. You believe that if you can just crack the code of their behavior, you will finally be safe. Maya and the letter K. In a quiet office in Wicker Park, Maya Rodriguez sat at her desk. She was supposed to be picking colors for a new ad campaign. She was a junior art director, and she was good at her job because she noticed small details. She noticed when a shade of blue was 1% too dark. She noticed when a font didn't match the mood of a brand. But today, her talent for details was ruining her life. At 10:15 a.m., she had sent a text to Liam. They had been dating for 7 months, and things were going well. Usually. She had sent him a funny photo of a dog wearing a hat, and wrote, "This reminded me of that guy at the park yesterday. Hope your morning is going great." At 12:30 p.m., Liam replied. He just wrote K. Maya stared at the screen. Her heart gave a small sharp thump against her ribs. She felt a wave of heat climb up her neck. In her mind, the inner citadel was under attack. She didn't see a letter. She saw a puzzle. She began to dye her soul with the color of that K. Is he mad? She wondered. He never just sends a K, he usually sends an emoji. Or at least, haha, okay. A K is what you send when you are annoyed. Did I text him too much this morning? Maybe the dog photo wasn't funny. Maybe he thinks I'm boring. She opened their past text messages and started scrolling. She was looking for data. She wanted to see the last time he sent a short reply. She was trying to build a map of his mood. An hour passed. She hadn't touched her color palette. Her boss walked by and asked how the project was going. Maya smiled and lied, but her mind was miles away. She was treating Liam's text like a crime scene. She was looking for fingerprints, clues, and motives. She was so busy trying to solve Liam that she had completely disappeared from her own life. Maya was doing exactly what those people in the 1944 study did. She saw a shape, a simple K, and she turned it into a story about a bully and a victim. She was sure she was being objective, but she was actually just a passenger on a mental merry-go-round that was spinning faster and faster. Separating the fact from the fiction. To stop the spiral, we have to learn the most basic skill of the secure anchor. We have to learn to look at things without adding the story. Imagine you are a security camera. A security camera doesn't have feelings. It doesn't have an anxious attachment style. It doesn't worry about the future. It just records what happens. If a security camera looked at Liam's text, it would record, at 12:30 p.m., a message containing the letter K was received. The camera wouldn't say, he is being cold. It wouldn't say, he is losing interest. Those are adjectives. They are opinions. They are the die that Marcus Aurelius warned us about. When you find yourself turning love into a puzzle, you have to stop and ask, what is the camera seeing? The spiral, he hasn't called me in 2 days because he's realizing he doesn't want to be with me. The camera, he hasn't called in 2 days. The spiral, she sounded really short on the phone. I must have done something to upset her. The camera, she spoke for 3 minutes and her voice was lower than usual. The spiral, they posted a photo with their friends but didn't text me back. I'm not a priority. The camera, they posted a photo. They haven't replied to my message yet. The camera version of the truth is boring. It is flat. It doesn't have any drama. And that is exactly why it is the cure for overthinking. Anxiety lives in the drama. It feeds on the why and the what if. When you stick to the what is, the anxiety has nothing to eat. The soul's new paint. Marcus Aurelius knew that he couldn't stop the stories from popping into his head. No one can. Your brain is a story-making machine. It will always try to turn the triangles into bullies and the circles into heroes. The goal isn't to stop the stories from starting. The goal is to stop believing them the moment they appear. Marcus practiced something called objective representation. Whenever he saw something that upset him, he would describe it in the most basic, unfancy terms possible. He once described expensive purple robes, the symbol of his power, as sheep's wool dyed with the blood of a shellfish. He described a fancy dinner as the dead body of a fish, and the dead body of a pig. By stripping away the meaning, he took away the power those things had over him. He wasn't being a grouch, he was being free. He was making sure his soul wasn't dyed by the world's opinions. You can do the same with your relationship. When you feel the red phone in your mind starting to ring, that internal alarm that says something is wrong, fix it. Analyze it. You can choose a different color of paint. You can choose to believe that the gap in information is just a gap. It isn't a puzzle. It isn't a riddle. It is just life happening in real time. The first step toward ease. The reason love feels like a puzzle is that we are trying to control the outcome. We think that if we can just figure out what our partner is thinking, we can prevent them from leaving us or hurting us. We use overthinking as a shield. But overthinking is a shield made of glass. It doesn't protect you, it just cuts you when it breaks. Real safety doesn't come from knowing everything your partner is thinking. Real safety comes from the inner citadel. It comes from knowing that even if the story you are afraid of comes true, you will be okay. You don't need to solve the puzzle to be safe. You are safe because you are the one holding the pen. Back in her office, Maya took a deep breath. She looked at the K on her screen one more time. She felt the urge to text back something like, "Is everything okay? You seem quiet." She felt the urge to peck the button for a seed of reassurance. Then, she remembered the triangles. She remembered the sheep's wool and the shellfish blood. She put her phone face down on the desk. She didn't delete the text. She didn't block Liam. She just decided that, for the next hour, the K was just a letter. It wasn't a sign of the end. It wasn't a secret code. It was just a mark on a screen. She picked up her mouse and clicked on a bright, vibrant shade of yellow. She started to work. For the first time all morning, the die in her mind started to change. She wasn't at the finish line yet, and the red phone was still humming in the back of her mind, but she had made a choice. She had stopped trying to solve a person and started living her own life. The puzzle was still there, but she had decided to stop looking for the missing piece. She realized that she was the only piece she actually needed. Chapter 2: 3 Shadows of the Anxious Mind. In the early winter of 1900, a man named Sigmund Freud sat in a room filled with heavy curtains and the smell of expensive tobacco. He lived in Vienna, a city of grand buildings and narrow, winding streets. Freud was a doctor, but he didn't fix broken bones or heal fevers. He was trying to do something much more difficult, and at the time, much more controversial. He wanted to fix the human mind. He was a pioneer who felt like he was walking through a dark forest without a flashlight. He didn't always want to be the one to find the answers, but he felt he had no choice. People were suffering from worries they couldn't explain, and no one else was listening. A young woman walked into his office. In his notes, he called her Dora to protect her real name. Dora was 19 years old, sharp-witted and deeply unhappy. She felt like the people she loved most, her father and a family friend named Herr K, were playing a giant game of chess with her life. She was constantly analyzing their every move. If Herr K gave her a gift, she wondered what he really wanted. If her father went for a walk, she wondered who he was meeting. She was trapped in a mental loop, much like the one that keeps you awake at 2 a.m., wondering why your partner used a period instead of an exclamation point. Freud watched her closely.